everyone, this is Moon.
And I'm Coco. I'm sitting here in Austin, Texas.
And I'm in Irvine, California. And we are the Blueray Collective.
Yes.
And if you want to hear more about who we are and how we got started, please check out our first episode. And this is our second episode where we want to share what we've been experiencing recently. There's been some really interesting shifts going on. And we thought this is a perfect occasion to get started again with recording a podcast to share with you guys.
Yeah, I think we've, a lot of us in-tune beings have been going through this initiation process as we're moving into this fall season of ours. I know that there was very much so of intensity of energies that were coming through, whether it was solar flashes or just intensity of transition as we're shedding this old part of ourselves and being initiated into this new self, going into the fall and into the winter of this year. And we again want to make you feel like you're not the only person going through this process. So we want to talk about our own of the ups and downs of it. And yeah, we're excited to be here.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting how it happens, because we've had it happen many times before, but now that we have started the Blueray Collective, we're like, okay, like now we know when to actually turn on the camera and be like, okay, this is what's happening, because both of us would wake up in the morning and be like, hey, this and that is happening for me. What about you? Even my sister called and like woke up in the morning. It's like, something happened last night, you know, and it was actually the day of the equinox. And we all just went like, last night, this happened, that happened, my mind changed like this, and my like this. So we're like, okay, there must be something big collectively happening. And I think like tapping into it, exchanging this information starts making sense of what we have singularly, individually experienced more. And from that point of view, it's like, okay, we have this clue, that clue, that clue. We can kind of tune into the collective energy. And what we have experienced recently seems to be, even astrologically, just the beginning. It's kind of a setup for the not the equinox, how it's called, eclipse season that's coming.
Oh yeah, exactly, because it almost feels like when I felt like it was such a big transition that I had on my own, and I remember sending you an audio. I'm like, this is like one of the biggest like shifts in my awareness I've had in my whole life. And that's the crazy part, is that we're barely scratching the surface of what we're about to experience in the next couple of months that are coming up with the eclipse in Scorpio this year. So that's why we're here, and we want to talk about it, because it's pretty insane how this process never stops. And I think like when we first just start getting started in this awakening process, we're like, oh my God, Mike, I changed so much. But what you start realizing a few years into it is that this just keeps happening and it keeps getting more intense. And as we're moving through this transition, that is intensifying our own personal experience of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're always sitting and working on our spiritual growth and whatever energy that kind of arrives in our day-to-day lives, the little conflicts that we have, the little challenges that we get, or the bigger challenges that we get. Those are all things that are put in front of us to grow beyond. And every time we have to react differently than the previous time before. And as we're going through this awakening process, we're of course being hit with situations that are even more emotionally charged or deeper rooted in our traumas of our past lives or even earlier lives, our childhood self. And it seems like, you know, a year ago we were like, oh my God, we're so like awakened, we know all this and we know all that. And now like a year later, a year and a half later, we're like, we don't know nothing. You know, it's like, experienced a lot of stuff so far, but the more we know, the more we realize how little we know, and how this is just the beginning of the next stage, and that stage is just the beginning of the next stage. So we're trying to stay as humble as possible in terms of, you know, like this is the knowledge that we are acquiring, the wisdom that we have created is just a stepping stone. And we feel like this past equinox has been extremely potent and very, very important as a stepping stone into our next level, because we both started discovering, okay, these are the modalities that we've worked with. We have used PHHT to help each other, find each other, work with each other. But now we're like, both of us stepping into new modalities that are very much congruent with what we have looked into beforehand. And it's in parallel to the healings that we've done.
Yeah, it's like we're expanding and growing. And I think whatever is coming to surface right now for you individually as a person and for us is just going to propel us into this new phase that we're going to be experiencing. And like, you're so right when you were talking about how like a year ago, we're like, oh, we're just, we're at this crazy level of awareness. And then like this year, I was just so humbled. I'm like, oh my God, like I am just getting started. Like I realized I've thought of myself as like a very connected person to like the land and the earth. And then this past week, I was like, oh my God, I'm so ignorant to so many things. I've been so ignorant my whole life. And it's like, I'm exploring that part of myself as the inner child of mine, the 4-year-old who is actually way more connected to the earth, the plants and nature than I have been my whole life, It's like those little tiny breakthroughs, but those breakthroughs can create so much of an expansion in our personal self.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to experience your journey, because there's been a lot of work that we did around our ancestors, connecting with our cultures, the places, the countries that we came from, which we will expand into more into further episodes. But this particular current situation right now started with really, really going into connecting with the ancestors, with our grandparents, with the stories of our families, and even wound healing that you've done for months, and then suddenly like the result of all this work that you've done is coming in, how's it called, in view, as you're starting to connect deeply with the earth and plants and medicine in that sense. So
definitely. And I think because we've been kind of congruently doing almost in a similar time frame with the womb healing, but yeah, the ancestral connection that I'm getting on like so many different levels has really changed the game field for me. And I feel like a year ago I was activating and acting much more in the top 3 chakras, where right now I'm learning how to activate my bottom 3. And I've been going through this process over the past few months, really realizing that ascension isn't necessarily like an upward process, but it's like descending fully into the body and into the earth. And I'm feeling much more present in this human experience. I'm trying to figure out how to merge my spiritual self into society, because for a little while I wanted to escape. Like I think a lot of spiritual beings have that. Once they go through an awakening, they're like, all right, like I can't function in a city, I can't be here, I can't be around other unawakened beings. And it is a hard transition at the very beginning, and it does give you the like, you don't want, like I just want to run, I want to be around people like me, and there is nothing wrong with that. And I think everyone has their own journey, but what I've been trying to do myself is try to figure out how to act as a spiritual being in society, and bridge both of those parts of myself. And it's been a challenging experience, I'm not gonna lie. It's not the easiest thing, but I do think it has a great promise of like really testing yourself and seeing how well you can move through things when they come up.
yeah, absolutely. Actually, what you just said really relates to the post that I just made on our Instagram profile, because it was about grounding, right? I also have a really, really hard time grounding in the physical space. I feel like in general, I came to this planet with my top 3 chakras open and functioning, or even over functioning, but the lower chakras have been a difficulty. And I remember I've spent my childhood, or like even my college days, contemplating about the fact that somehow I'm stuck in this body and I can't leave this planet, no matter how where I run and how often I vent the whole earth, I can't go anywhere. um but now, like, through the spiritual journey, and I'm actually discovering, understanding who I am and why I am here, I transformed into really, really appreciating being here. It was
Yeah.
very hard for me to take on the pace of the 3D world, which is very slow. All your thoughts don't manifest immediately, and things take time. Action, reaction takes time. Human interaction, people get confused. There's a lot of misunderstandings, and even just wearing too many clothes, like things that are like physically dragging me down, would like really making me
Mhm.
feel agitated, and now I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I'm here for a reason. I'm on this planet for a reason. I received this amazing body that functions so perfectly. I didn't consider my body very much. My mind was just running and wanted to do things and manifest things and create things, but my body got worn down a lot in the process. And the more I'm realizing, okay, I came here, I chose to be here, I received this body as a gift, and the body that I have is my connection to Mother Earth, for whom I'm
Yeah.
here to come and create paradise, co-create paradise with. The earth itself is already so perfect, but our human experience has become very, very difficult for our planet and for each other. And us as light workers, as awakeners, as healers, our job is to anchor higher frequency energies, but we can't do that if we don't accept the body and if we don't connect with the earth and connect with the environment that we have. So
Through the body that we get to do that. Like our body is this temple that is allowing us to exist in this three-dimensional realm on this planet. So it's like we need to learn how to connect with it, which actually brings me to the idea of how, I mean, we've both moved through some physical symptoms, but I've had an incredible heaviness around my sacral for a few years now. It's been going up and down, and it was really, really intense over the past 6 months as I was moving through a lot of shifts in my life. And I had like one of the biggest breakthroughs over the past week. And I feel, I mean, it's not 100% there yet, but it's like 75% better, which I couldn't say for the last year.
yeah,
So like our body is also just a reflection of like where our energy is vibrating at a more dense in a more dense way, or not fully activated because of the memories that are being stuck there, or the messages that were being sent, and it's telling us to, hey, look in that spot, like what is going on there.
mhm,
And sometimes we've done so many sessions with me around my gut, and it's crazy because it was not like a one-time fix, and sometimes we want it to be, but in the reality, sometimes it's layers of things that you need to peel. It's not just one thing that's being stuck in that area. And I think in our society, sometimes we get so impatient and being like, oh, I want this fixed now. So that created our medical system that only treats the symptom rather than actually looking at the root cause of it, because there's so much more, so much dirt and mud that we need to go through in order to fully heal that spot. I mean, sometimes it is that it's the one-time thing, but sometimes it's not, and that creates this journey and a lesson for us to be patient and yet still heal a lot of part of ourselves. It
mhm.
gives us an opportunity rather than seeing it as like a downside, seeing it as an opportunity for healing so many layers of ourselves
Exactly.
that we need to face.
Exactly. I mean, the thing about our bodies is, a lot of people take it for granted until it starts falling apart. And
Yeah.
people think, okay, I need to start taking care of my body once it starts falling apart. That's what the medicine is that you talked about. But then in reality, it's also part of having and receiving a body, a part of being a human, having a limited amount of time on this planet, and also part of dealing with illnesses that arise. Your body is almost like not a recording device. It's made out of water and crystals. It carries so much information. Your entire DNA has so much information about your entire life, about your ancestry, about all the beings that came ahead of ourselves. And there's information stuck in there, and things happen to us over here on this planet, so we grow and learn. right? Like if we just vibrate on a higher frequency and run around without bodies, it would be very, very hard to learn the heavy lessons that we're able to learn on this planet. Being embodied, being physical, having emotions that are as deep and dark and high and beautiful as they come over here on this planet. And part of learning is understanding and connecting with the body and be like, okay, this symptom is coming up now. Why am I learning this? What does it relate to? And then we go into the hypnosis and we find out, oh, okay, it's connected to my childhood interaction with this and that person, with mom and dad, with siblings, whatnot. And then it translates further into further generations of people who have come before us, who have experienced similar kind of vibrations, but were not able to overcome it and handed us down through our DNA, through our energy field, so we can take a look. So that's how kind of spiritual evolution happens through physical evolution. We become stronger, we become bigger, and we become more resilient as we go, but also on the spiritual and emotional level, we are solving all these things that the previous generations haven't.
Yeah.
Solve, but we're also inheriting all the good stuff that they're giving us. You know, all the abilities and all the knowledge and all these things need to be awakened just the way we need to be awakened to the messages of the illnesses and challenges that we get from our physical bodies.
Yeah, and seeing it as teachers. And I think, I mean, to be honest, it's not only modern medicine that does like the symptom healing, but I also see it like in the new age community that they're like, oh, I want to do this energy work and have this like higher 5D download and like make it go away, you know? But in reality, it's like, if we don't like know, like, let's just give an example, I don't know, a random example of like I was having gut issues because I was creating the same pattern in my life of maybe attracting the same human being, and that's what was being stuck. But if I don't bring awareness to it, then it's not going and like resolve this pattern, and so that this no longer happens, and I won't really heal that way.
Yeah.
So it's like, in a way, I mean, sometimes like an energy work can actually activate that part in you, give that awareness. A few days later, you all of a sudden have this like, oh crap, I've been doing this. So maybe that energy work activated it, but it's really important to know that, bring that awareness into your life so that you can actually fix whatever it is that is causing the symptom in your body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And healing is an ongoing process, as she said, like whatever comes up, whatever shows up in your physical body, in your emotions, in your immediate interactions and relationships with people, that's where the healing happens. And I think a lot of people think, oh, I don't need to heal because I'm functioning. But the more we're doing this healing work on ourselves and other people, we realize everybody needs to do this. Like our entire job being here on this planet is to heal ourselves, is to find out where are we being held back in this and that way, whereas our physical body needs to be primed in such a way that we are creating this temple, right? We come with a message, we come with a mission, but also part of the process of resolving and coming to manifest our missions is the work of healing. Okay, welcome back.
Yeah, so the bodies are just incredible messengers that we need to really learn how to work being in tune with it, really being in this like flow with understanding and putting different pieces, and that brings us being in tune with nature and understanding that like the land is really there to support us and to hold us and to be our healer. And like that literally every single plant around us can be used into some kind of way to activate some part of ourselves or to soothe or support. And we're just literally this one ecosystem that's been so disrupted, where we just are living so separate from it. You know, we're not putting our feet on the ground, we're driving in cars all day, we're on concrete, we're just hooked up into Wi-Fi all day. We need to literally return to where we came from, and that literally goes back into the way that our ancestors lived, in a beautiful in tune way that's been just disconnected throughout so many years.
Absolutely.
And we need to do the work. We need to do the work to heal, to shed, to go back and to relearn what we've lost. It's like remembering everything that has been lost to come back, and in a new way, because I think also, like, yes, they lived in a certain in a way, but we are also bringing the newness of this new time that we're in, because they did live in a different time. So now we have that advantage of really living in this new time frame that's actually giving us more abilities of these new technologies that are obviously a little bit more in tune with not the ones that exist that we know of, at least, right? So bridging that with the ancestral knowledge, and that's what's going to bring us that new earth that we're trying to create.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've always been fascinated about the concept of kind of the tribal experience, you know, like living in small family or tribe-centered societies that we evolved from, and the amazing, incredible information and wisdom that we have from those experiences that then that come directly from living with mother nature, right? And then the side of this technology-based futuristic society that we grew up in, and combining the two. I love it in music, I love it in food, I love all these kind of cultural fusions of that. And it's really important for us as the Blueray collective, as Coco and I evolve in our process to bring these ancestral knowledges that we have from our own lineage, as well as other lineages that we have gotten in touch with, as well as what we know now with, you know, using the internet and connecting with each other through social media, and being able to use electronic music, you know, to get us into the trance states that we love, you know, and go partying and dancing, but all happening in like a tribal context. We come together as a collective and have these beautiful communing in nature. And there's so many beautiful societies and collectives that are coming together in the earth, and we want to create our own and connect with everyone that is doing the same and exchange information and doing these things. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that one of our main fundamental messages that we want to bring across and use as the main foundations of our collective is the principle that the body is an instrument, right? Our bodies are an instrument. Our bodies are the temple. Our bodies are able to get fine-tuned to such a degree that we become these amazing, effective beings that can create physical change. And this is our journey for both of us individually, figuring out how to connect with our bodies through grounding, how to connect with our bodies by healing all these little ailments that we have collected over time, and using these messages as stepping stones to reach our higher awareness, but also coming to a place of co-creation, right? Where we're dancing and performing, where we're singing, and where we're, you know, using our spoken word and using our thoughts and our creative abilities, our ways of using our hands for healing and creating things of beauty. Like that's where we all need to get to and want to get to, in a sense. And so both of us, we kind of jumped to the next stage of making that a reality. Cornelia has connected with her ancestors and the knowledge that comes through herbs and herbal medicine. And mine was actually connecting with emotions, right? Like emotions and the physical body are so intertwined. And I have lived my entire life besides myself, and oftentimes mentally analyzing what is happening and trying to explain to myself how things work, and experiencing life through the mental lens. And the more I'm coming into the body, the more I'm accepting the physical body and the 3D space, the more I'm understanding what emotions are and how important emotions are, what the use of emotions is, and how you can heal emotions. And QHHT has been incredible in opening my eyes towards the understanding of emotions and the shifting of emotions and calibrating of emotions, but also learning how not to get overwhelmed by emotions. Like emotional flooding and getting overwhelmed, like tsunamis coming, emotions from left and right, and not being able to make sense. Just also my human design is in a way that I have very, very high emotional waves. Now learning how to ride that, how to use that for healing, how to also use that for manifesting, it's been mind-blowing for me and such a big change in my perspective. And I think that's where we're both headed in terms of our next stage of evolution, right?
Yeah, and like learning to listen to those, it's like intertwining what we were just talking about, like the symptoms with emotions, and knowing that a lot of the times like a random symptom comes up is because there's an emotion behind it, right? Or like maybe your gut's telling you to do something, that's why it's flaring up, and you're not like proceeding with that, right? That's what's been happening for me over years, where it's like my gut was trying to tell me something and I wasn't seeing it, and then later it came out to be, I'm like, oh, that's what it was, you know. So I think that's, you're right about seeing your body as a messenger and figuring out how those emotions realign to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like most illnesses that we manifest in our physical body comes from the non-physical space, right? It somehow is this energetic architecture that exists beyond the physical space. And emotions are interesting because you can't feel or touch, like not feel, like you can't touch emotions, you can't place them in a specific place, but you can feel them in different places of our bodies.
Yeah.
Emotions don't exist outside of the body. Emotions don't exist in the mind. They exist in the physical body. But you can't say, oh, it's just existing there, like an organ exists there and there, you know, and you can pinpoint where it is. It's like, it's this almost astral kind of energy that moves through our body and moves outside of the body and can be exchanged between people and those kind of things.
Quantum field, right?
Exactly, in the quantum field. And understanding the nature of emotions is really important because emotions come as a wave and are meant to be experienced, and the information that they bring needs to bring us knowledge and understanding to make better decisions or calibrating a certain situation, knowing what's happening. But when people don't know how to deal with emotions, and most oftentimes we as children don't know how to deal with these emotions, and if the parents don't know how to do it, they can't teach us, and oftentimes the emotions get stuck in our physical body because our physical body is dense, and this emotion that is supposed to pass through us gets stuck. And as soon as we have this emotional not multidimensional, how's it called? Electromagnetic field of the emotion stuck within the pattern, the physical pattern of our body, it starts becoming magnetic and attracting more and more experiences that bring out the same emotion. So it continues growing until it turns into something. It becomes a symptom, or it actually becomes an ailment. It becomes cancer. It becomes different kind of things, you know? And learning how to identify that, knowing where is an emotional stuck related to what and what story, what and what experience is super important to be able to release it. And part of our work in hypnosis in QHHT is identifying that emotion that's stuck in the body somewhere, going into that energetic field, and then trace it back to the first time we experienced it.
Yeah.
And being able to release it, because back then we didn't have the tools, but now we do.
Yeah.
And the whole process of healing is tapping into all these little stuck emotions or bigger stuck emotions, releasing them over time until emotions can just flood through us. We get the information, we understand what's happening, we use it as a guidance system for our life, but are able to move through and move past them. They're not stuck in a place to hold on to. And that's when we know, okay, we're healed, we're ready, we're able to take on the world, but it's a process.
And there's always more healing to do. And no, I was actually explaining to somebody the other day, like they asked me, well, I was telling them I do quantum healing. They're like, what kind of hypnosis do you do? I'm like, quantum healing hypnosis. They're like, well, what does quantum mean, right? I was explaining like, okay, so the body has a quantum field, and then our fields hold messages, right? And those messages hold stories, and so stories can go down to like our childhood or our ancestors. And like the crazy part is like we hold the emotions of, you know, our parents and our ancestors. So like me coming from a very strong World War II background and like my Polish lineage, like a lot of that fear, like that's all held in my field. And until I consciously start resolving this, it's going to continue holding until I pass it on to my kids, which is, you know, not in the ideal world, right? So this is where we kind of have to go back in and resolve and release, so that we're no longer holding those same patterns in our quantum field, right? Yeah, electromagnetic field.
And what I find really interesting and also started really realizing during this time of the equinox just now is our ancestors are there for us, right? They're the ones that have, each one of them gone through their own challenges and have resolved for their future generations, which is us. So we're able to live the lives that we are living now. But then also there are all these things that are still holding us back as well as them. And they're now on the other side and have become our guides. And the more we actually connect with our ancestors, the more we live together with them, the more we pay tribute to them through conversations and through our daily rituals. If we turn on the incense and turn on the candles, or even give offerings, that's how my Mongolian tradition does it. The more they become aware of us and realize, okay, they are not obsolete in our lives just because they're not physically here anymore. I live together with them. And as they are helping us to give us information and guidance through QHHT sessions and other meditations and different kind of ways, the more we become sensitive to hearing them more and more in our everyday daily life. And they can support us from a whole different perspective, not the physical way we just, used to our senses guiding us throughout the world. We start hearing them, we start getting their messages, we receive their guidance. And as we're resolving all these issues that they haven't been able to resolve in the physical space when they were alive, it helps them to release it too. So you're clearing lineages, you're clearing previous lifetimes, you're clearing karma throughout the past and in the future. So right now, it's literally, the now is the most important time because we get to live it right now. This is our life, and we need to own it and love it and cherish it and honor it as much as we can. But as we're doing things, we are evolving consciousness to the next level by clearing karma through the generations, which is a really beautiful concept. And I'm very happy that we get to do this work and we get to do it together.
Definitely. I think for me, well, and what helps, because I never understood the connection of my own personal connection to ancestors. I've seen people have it. Like I mentioned, I was born in Poland, so I moved here when I was to the US when I was 11 years old. So I understand my country on a deep level growing up there. But like obviously in schools, you're only given so much knowledge about the history of your country, which is not much because obviously the schooling system is owned by the government, right? So I only had like what the knowledge that I was like being like, okay, this has happened, what happened during World War II and World War I, which is also limited, right? But I also had the stories from my great grandparents and my grandparents, which were very much so true stories. But my true understanding of my ancestral lineages, I just started, I think I had like a reading from somebody that was saying that there was some kind of message from like 4 or 7 generations ago. I was taking on the karma of a great grandmother of mine. There was a few starting points, and I just went down this rabbit hole of actually researching my more of like my indigenous culture. And I think it could help for everybody to really go back and trace it, because we know like the Native Americans have incredible native or indigenous cultures and those like raw traditions before society came in and kind of destructed that. I know you were already pretty connected to your part, but I came across like all of this information in this incredible book that this woman wrote about how connected actually the Polish people were to nature, to the land, and before religion came through and destructed and then killed off all these women that were basically living in tune with the nature. And that was just like activated point inside of me. And since then in my meditation space, I just feel I'm so strongly around me. I've had more memories, more past life memories of my ancestors. And it's been just an activation after activation until now. I started studying herbalism, and that has even brought on like so many more memories from my childhood of like what my grandparents were doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this was passed on from lineage to lineage. And now I can activate it myself and bring it back to life. And it's been helping to really ground me and to propel me on all this entire journey. So I think it's really helpful to go back and just try to research where your lineage truly comes from. And at that point, like they were start coming in and activating your reality too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful journey to witness from my end. You know, I got to see glimpses here and there, and during sessions it would come up, or you would tell me stories, and I could see the procession of you coming closer and closer to your ancestry and to your culture, and now coming to a place where you really want to embody it in your healing practice, personal practice, and becoming more and more yourself in a sense. You know?
Yeah, and it does. It felt like I was like, I remember, I think I was on the phone with you and I was just so excited because I was like learning all about like just that whole part of my life. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've activated like a part of myself that like always existed, but I never knew that it existed, you know? And it was like, I made it. That's great.
Totally. It's so great to see. And Coco is also the type of person who walks the talk, you know, like you realize things, you understand things through the journeys and through the healing work, but you always go around, turn around and implement it right away into your life and make it real, you know. And I recently had a call with her and she's like, yeah, I'm getting into herbalism and I ordered 25 books and I'm reading it already now.
Yeah, it's been great.
Reconnect with this information and the knowledge, and I can't wait to, you know, be able to call you and be like, oh, I'm having this, you know.
Yeah.
She wants answers.
It's been so exciting.
For sure. And I think also during the learning process, it would be great to call on the ancestors and be like, you know, what information do I really need? You know, what is that like my specific lineage really work with? And it will spark up for you as you're reading, as you're learning. And I think there'll be a lot of memories activated in you just to connect with the plants, touching the plants.
So much. Like it's been a week so far of like me actually going into it. And I feel like to be honest, like a part of me like died, but a part of me was excited. The part of me that was so sad and my heart still honestly really hurts because I'm realizing how much humanity has been disconnected. Like literally it's in our like most of our herbal pantries and we don't even know what that herb does and where it comes, where it's literally growing like in our backyard, you know. I'm like, this should be in like everyone's like high school. Like everyone should know what like herbs are used for, what each plant is used for, like have an understanding of how we're in tune with it. And I was just so saddened. I'm like, this is so simple, but it's been so just taken away from us, you know.
I mean, there's a lot of agendas that are very politically
oriented. Yeah, so look at David Icke, but like we're not going to go into that part.
That make us disconnected in the sense, but then like we're also responsible for it. You know, we allowed it to be taken away from us because the information is available. The internet is available. There's books. There's all these things, you know, and I think. But
the thing is, there's a stigma of like this is woo woo. Like most people like, oh, herbalism, like, oh, that's so woo woo. But I'm thinking though, as obviously as we're going through the past 3 years, just so many people got shaken up, and I know it's going to continue to happen as we're going through this. So I have a strong belief, like if the woo woo stuff is going to start becoming like, oh wow, like this is real, you know.
Exactly. I mean, just the fact that you know, mushrooms and psychedelics and ayahuasca is starting to really take hold in the healing community and the spiritual community, as well as people, you know, who are going about their day-to-day in a more mainstream way. People are understanding, okay, plants have massive effects on us, you know, and each plant is doing things differently, and some work much more subtly, some work way more intensely, like ayahuasca, you know. I mean, ayahuasca is a combination of multiple plants, of course.
But the only concern that I have is like I I am seeing that move, but at the same time, I'm seeing that like, because I believe like psychedelics are very like powerful plants and healing tools. A part of like humanity is also like not realizing like what kind of powerful tool it is, and almost like desensitizing it, like, oh, it's just psychedelics, it could be like weed. Where like I think we need to like really take this seriously and be like, this, like, we need to pray with this, we need to make sure that like we're putting it in our body in the right scenarios so that we're not absorbing other people's stuff. It's really, really important the way we use it too.
Absolutely correctly, and I mean absolutely correct. Sorry,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's very, very true, and that's where we go back to our ancestral knowledge again. So we use it in the traditions that that have worked with these medicines before and are able to take advantage of what has come before. So we do it in a safe manner, but also we honor it in the right way. But also on the other hand, you know, like we were just speaking about how we earlier, like a year ago, we thought we knew everything, you know, not necessarily. But
We'll come back here in a year. We're like, all right, this is what we've learned.
But we did dabble into it, you know, we did dabble with different kind of things. We dabbled with psychedelics, we dabbled with different healing modalities, we dabbled with secret knowledge on all these things. And we had to go in there, make mistakes and come out of it and be like, okay, I learned. I understand now, you know, and the medicine has taught me and put me into my place, but also has expanded my knowledge and my understanding of the universe and my connection to it and the earth and whatnot. And I think part of the process of being human is being able to make mistakes, you know, and learn from the consequences, but also we have so much knowledge from the ancestors that we can rely on. Why keep making the same mistakes over and over again and reinvent the wheel if we can learn other lessons, you know, if we, you know, honor what has come before, the right things, not things that are restricting us in our freedom and our exploration, but things that are really used as stepping stones for us to reach higher levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, so on my end of the equinox awakening, we can call it, is really into ancestors and emotions, and also knowing that I want to pursue the emotion code and the body code. I think it's called, I mean, those are the books. But this Dr. Nelson, he has been able to structure all these different kind of emotions and has created a modality to be able to release emotions through using the nervous system to release it, and being able to transmute these emotions through time, space, and dimensions and lineages and so on, and being able to reach a place of peace and reconciliation. You know, I use the Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian way of, you know, I love you, I forgive you, I'm sorry. I think it's actually opposite. It's I'm sorry, I love you, I forgive you. And it's proven so incredibly powerful. I experienced an astral travel journey that I put on YouTube. Maybe I can put her link on our video later. And I was guided to be able to jump different places and visit other people and check out different places. But I saw how warped my reality was, how warped my mind and my emotions were at the point in time. And I started using this technique during the astral travel, like the astral state. And it released so much debris in my mind and my body and my emotions. I cannot even put it into words right now. It's been so effective. So it was a hypnotic state, like how you would get into in QHHT, but I was using this emotion code technique to release emotions for myself instead of going to a practitioner where I'm like, okay, Cornelia, please help me with this and that. I was able to do that for myself because of the knowledge that I had with the emotion code. And I think that's where I'm going to pursue my next step, my knowledge, to really look deeper into what emotions are, how to release them, and how to transmute through them, and clear the space to be able to manifest much more clearly.
I love that. No, a couple months ago, I was doing a womb healing, pretty intensive womb healing. And part of the process was using that same I love you, I forgive you, or I'm sorry, I love you, I forgive you, with the connection to my mother. And I can really truly say that like it feels so much lighter of me. I think I was doing it for like a month every single day, looking at her photo, and it's released a lot. And I couldn't imagine if I just kept doing it every single day for the next year or so. Like I'm sure like my reality already shifted so much, you know? So it's really powerful. And even just using that and incorporating into your practice, maybe with a person that you need some kind of releasement with, I think it's just so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like my most recent clients have been very much focused on emotional release. And it's sometimes even more difficult to travel the universe and find out the star systems that you're from, and discovering the lives that you have led as different alien species and whatnot, if you haven't released all these karmic boundaries and blockages ahead of time. And those are mostly emotional. You know, like we get stuck in our development when trauma happens, and trauma happens as a response to situations where we were so overwhelmed with emotion that we didn't know what to do with it. And if we're able to release them and clear our systems more and more, the less prone we are to illness, number one. And number two, the more we're able to use these emotions to manifest more beautiful moments in our lives. Because now these dark emotions that used to be stuck in our bodies, that would keep gravitating us to negative situations to resolve it eventually. It's all to our benefit, of course. If we don't have them anymore, then we can gravitate more and more to more joyful, more exciting, and more beautiful experiences in our lives, where we are co-creating, actively creating experiences and products, and like beautiful moments together, like in a way that we are beneficial to our society and our evolution.
Definitely, and you're not allowing your emotions rule your reality, because what we see, and I mean, I've seen it in my own personal life, when before I started doing the work, a lot of the times you're letting your emotions rule your decisions. And I can see it in other people's, when you're in like an elevated fight, right? You're not thinking consciously. You're letting your emotions rule you. This is why like physical abuse happens, or you end up throwing something, right? I mean, like it still happens even to like people who are doing the work. It's not saying that it's never not going to happen, but you're able to control it more and let it come out less. And you're able to think a few times before you start, whatever, your outrage happens, or your yelling happens, or whatever emotional
conflicts happen,
tension. Exactly. So that's why it's important to do the work, and it takes time, because it's been so deeply rooted in us that it definitely takes time. And the you will only be tested when like you're with the people that trigger you most in your reality, which a lot of the times it's our family, or actually, honestly, it's mostly our family, because that's where the most karma comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. The families and our closest intimate relationships. Right? We choose our partners in a way that our triggers somehow match. That when you love each other so much that you're willing to move through the triggers. So that's like almost like an evolutionary mechanism. So we can release these traumas. But people get confused about like meeting people, and they show up in a certain way. But as things get more complicated, as interactions increase and you're more up in each other's space, suddenly there's triggers and suddenly people show up differently and you're like, but you're a very different person that I met. It's like, no, you're not a different person, or I'm not a different person, but I have unhealed parts of myself that are triggered and overwhelming me, taking over, and I'm lashing out because I didn't know how to deal with the emotion, but
I
with
think
the
that's
awareness, you turn into a way that you're like, okay, I'm being triggered. This is the emotion that's stuck. This is the emotion that's stuck, and this is the emotion that I need to release. And this is the healing process that then happens in intimate relationships. It can happen with friends, it can happen with family, but also mainly with your partner. And going into relationships, I think it's important to know that this is what you're getting into. You're not just there to happily live ever after. It takes work to get there. And if you're aware of the fact that it takes work to get there, and you're okay, this person is dealing with these and these things, I'm dealing with these and these things, we can take the journey together. And I think there are certain things that you can only resolve in communion, in relationship. And I think Teal Swan is an amazing person who can explain how people's personalities even split because of overwhelming emotions. And this is the reason why we've become so lonely, because everybody is having all these triggers and can't get along with each other anymore. So the process of putting ourselves back together, healing ourselves, every single one of us have triggers, which means each one of us needs to do the work of healing. Then the more we will be able to come together in community, and learning how to communicate through these triggers, learning how to communicate through any kind of a conflict in a non-violent way, in a respectful manner, is the only way for us as a collective, as the Blueray collective, as friends, as partners, as siblings and family, to move along and make this place as the 5D vibration that it is meant to be.
Exactly. Well said. I think I had like a download coming through. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about like how that's something that's been coming up for us when we're starting to realize like, okay, the true reality of friendship and relationship, you should be able to step up and talk about, honestly, in any higher consciousness relationship, you should be able to talk about your triggers openly. Another person should hear you, and your emotions shouldn't come over and get in defense mode, but rather, I think that's what we talked about a few days ago. As our friendship goes over a year now, we've gotten to a place where like, okay, like how about we help each other heal, and we're going to tell each other like when we're feeling triggered. I mean, it hasn't gotten to that point, but we've opened up that, and hopefully maybe we can even talk about these experiences if they do arise. That we want to talk about what our triggers are and be like, hey, you know what, you crossed my boundary right here. Because if we can give each other that open space, then we can allow ourselves to learn how to talk about that with other people in our lives, so I invite like any other people that are, in close friendships or relationships to open that up and give I think a lot of the times, I think what I realized, that it was stemming the fear of abandonment. Like if I talk about my feelings and if I tell someone, hey, you hurt me right there, and if they're not going to like that they're going to immediately leave from my life. And I think what you recently told me, you're like, hey, let me know how you feel. Like, we're going to work through this. I'm not going to run, And like, that's so beautiful to be able to, even just saying that gives you a comfort of like, oh, wow, this person is sticking around, and it does heal a part of me inside of me. Because I think at least I personally have done with some abandonment issues around healing. So that's definitely a powerful shift.
Yeah, it's so unhealthy to swallow emotions, right? Because these emotions are there to communicate something, and oftentimes anger is there to tell us, okay, somebody just crossed my boundary. And if we don't have a handle on our anger, we either lash out and we yell and scream or get violent, or we push it down. And those are the two ways of handling things, in a passive or more aggressive way to go about it, and both ways is not right, and I know that maybe when you when you personally start putting it down and swallowing these emotions and
Yeah, I'm just envisioning going in my gut and I'm like, all right, and it's sitting there. It's sitting there. I'm not talking and telling people how I'm feeling because I'm like, oh no, I can't tell that.
And if emotions are not expressed and stuck in the body, it starts poisoning you. Like
yeah,
I can see it in my face sometimes, that like when I have an emotion and I don't know how to express it to the person or to the situation,
yeah,
then it's stuck in my body until I have to find a way to release it. And if I don't release it early enough, I can see it in my face. I can see it manifested in my face when I take photos and like, oh, I'm feeling this way, I mean, you don't usually easily see it on the daily mirror, but if somebody takes a photo, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not emotionally healthy right now. Like what's there to release, and certain people carry it for so many years that it literally turns into cancer. Oftentimes, anger unexpressed and suppressed turns into cancer. So I think ahead of time, as we get older and are influenced by different kind of chemicals in our food and air and all these kind of things that exasperates the problem, we need to really go to the root of things and see what emotion is stuck in my body, what experience is related to it, how can I release it for myself, for my future generations, and for my ancestors. Let's do this. Let's do the work.
Yeah. And I think it's important to also remember when you are voicing, because it is a sensitive time when like you're speaking to somebody and you want to let them know, be like, hey, like, and it's not to like come out as you're attacking the other person, but rather say, I felt this way, like not you made me feel like angry, right? It was like I felt angry when you said this, rather than that you're not feeling like you're attacking the other human being, but you're still expressing that what you felt in that time. And it could be, I think, a lot more of a like elevated conversation at that point. But
I mean, it's everyone's own responsibility how you react to certain things, right? Yeah. And usually emotions arise as a response to something. And if very strong emotions arise that overwhelm you, it means you're triggered and you have an unhealed wound that you're carrying around somewhere. So it's really important to know, like, okay, somebody is doing something and it makes me feel a certain way is my thing. It's my responsibility, knowing that I need to heal. But if you use that emotion, get angry at that person and, release that emotion back to the other person, you're actually assaulting somebody. And that's not the way how to build stable, beautiful, evolving relationships. Of course, conflicts happen, but understanding or being present enough to understand, okay, something is arising in me, instead of getting triggered and lashing out, or punishing myself for any kind of experience or feelings that you have in whatever encounter.
Yeah.
Turning it into a healthy process and be like, okay, somebody overstepped my boundary. I'm feeling angry. I'm going to release that anger by understanding what the message of it is. And take your time to formulate the message and be like, hey, in this situation, you overstepped my boundary in this and that way that made me feel a certain way, but I'm not attacking you. I'm not attacking myself. I am turning it into something that is useful to build a foundation for a relationship to grow and continue and be on a stable, peaceful grounds. And it's easy to say, absolutely. But I think the more you spend time with this kind of information and start practicing it with the closest, with the people that you're most comfortable with, the more you can become better at it. And eventually we will be able to live in peace. Like that's what we want, right? Like 5D sounds so peaceful to me, coming to a place where you use every situation that comes across as a learning tool and result in a way that things turn more peaceful, things turn more loving, things turn more connected, and less lonely and less abandoned and less all these kind of things that we're all fearing, but somehow we keep stoking the fires. Yeah. So I think that was our message for today.
It was a long message today, but we could keep talking on and on and on about this, but we'll save it for episode 3.
Exactly. I mean, we're planning on bringing more people in too, and
some guest invites for sure.
Start inviting people to join our conversations and join their experiences of awakening, and we will continue sharing our own stories. And if there's anything that lights up for you where you need more clarification, want to know more, please send us a message, an email, a DM, whatever you want, and we can discuss it more, or make a new video that other people can hear about it too. And we'll do what we can to share.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, welcome
Thanks,
to the Blueray
guys.
Collective. Thanks for joining
Yeah.
us today, and see you very soon.